Mic is hot. Camera's tracking. Yep. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the third talk of the day. We are in track 1. If you haven't checked in the registration, please check in. Make sure we know everyone's here. Hopefully Isaac's ordered some pizza by now, but who knows, we'll see. Here we have Jeff Bailey. I said Bailey, right? Belay. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. Jeff Belay. Jeff Belay is going to speak to us. He has nearly 30 years of cybersecurity experience working in Fortune 500 organizations. He has led some of the largest nation-state investigations to include cyber espionage, critical national infrastructure, and cyber criminal ransomware cases, and is currently senior manager and global lead investigator with Accenture's customer-facing incident response team, working with Accenture's largest clients to investigate and remediate latent and persistent cybersecurity actors. Jeff oversees teams of investigators and threat hunters leading nation-state cyber espionage investigations, threat actor eradication, and destructive ransomware response and recovery efforts. Jeff's current role entails making artisan Taylor Swift gifts, chatting with various AI models, and consulting law enforcement on breaches of national importance. And his team's work has led to a number of convictions of threat actors at the behest of some of Accenture's largest clients. Jeff's incident response themed cocktail recipes are legendary pain relievers. Let's give Jeff a round of applause.
All right. I won't bring my intro slide. Terry covered it very well. I've been doing incident response before I could drink legally. I've had very strong opinions on versions of ThreatSet and OP, and the opinions that I share here are my own and not my employers. Warning, there will be a lot of Taylor Swift. First, thanks to my wife, she put up with more ransomware and more Taylor Swift than any one individual should. My entire team for putting up with Taylor Swift. They're paid to deal with ransomware, and dedicated to my mentor who passed away this year. So this is a true story about how we found an entire Lockbit affiliate network from a single TLS tip. We liked it so much that we actually put it on a challenge claim. So we call this the 23B7 actor. But we know it by a different name, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So back in February of 2021, we were doing some research on a Blackcat ransomware, so a different group than Lockbit. And we found some overlap in the infrastructure. They were using this TLS server, and we were able to track them through time. So we're going to talk about 6 different cases, 4 separate entities, 4 industries, and 3 continents. Also, my company, it should be 7 because Accenture was hit by Lockbit back in the day. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So all of the intrusions that we're going to talk about today start off with a soft goalish or a fake update. You have the thing that says, hey, your Chrome browser is out of date. Excuse me. And so what will happen is you'll get that fake pop-up that says you'll install this and you'll be able to view the site. Well, back in 2021 to 2023, we had a number of what we call fake update Fridays. 4:30 on a Friday, customer calls, and they have fake updates or Lockbit or something else. So let's talk about some quick mitigations here. 1, blocking ads. I can't state how critical that is to being able to to be able to stop ransomware. Additionally, being able to change those default associations will definitely stop the initial payload. And then lastly, turning on Smart Screen for Edge or for Chrome will stop the initial spread here. A brief history of Lockbit. So back in 2019, in September, you see ABC ransomware come on the screen. They are a precursor to Lockbit. We see them rebrand in September of the next year. And then we see Lockbit 2.0 released in June of 2021. I can't believe how wrong I was about this. Lockbit is just another ransomware group. I couldn't find the exact quote of me saying this, but I remember it. So now they have my attention. You know, I really wasn't paying attention to them, but once they hit my company, you know, they became on my list and red underline. So the first few engagements in our story. So we have this Blackcat event back in 2021. Nothing really interesting about it, not Lockbit. Then we have our first Lockbit 2.0 case. We learned a lot about them, but we didn't know enough to do anything about it. That was until our second Lockbit case. And the lure of the Lockbit case was these shoes. And our girl Taylor really liked the shoes there. So we met, well, I say we met, we ran across an initial access broker we've identified as Gansbronze. And Gansbronze ran a number of the registration domains for the Sockfoolish and for the Cobalt Strike C2s that we would see in our intrusions. And from there, one of the things we learned was they were not using who as protection, or so we thought. And we'll talk a little bit about how we were able to unmask the who is of Gansbronze here in just a moment. You know, we thought they were just being cheap, not paying the $2.61 or 199 rubles to do the regRU stuff. So you can see here, we have a redacted Gmail address for our domain, expresswayprojects.com. And with a little bit of magic, we have Gansbronze. So apparently what happens is the regRU whois server is not fully redacting all of the data points that it's bringing back. And so when you do it with whois or VirusTotal, let's use it this way. When you do it with passive total, or now Microsoft Defender for Threat Intelligence, you'll be able to still do this. I tested this yesterday, it still works. So if you ever run into regRU, you can find it. One of the other things we found interesting with this particular threat actor is we found a pattern in their domains. You can kind of see there, the .orgs are mostly Sockfoolish or .nets. The .coms are mostly Cobalt Strike, except for that one mage cart, which we think is an outlier just due to the age, and because, you know, they register a lot of scammy stuff. And so we started working on a pattern here. And our girl Taylor brings up a good point here. So one of the things that we wanted to look at is, were there patterns in the whois registrations by our guy Gansbronze? And you can kind of see he registers 2 or 3 a day, and you know they follow the same patterns as we saw on our slide here. But we see this gap over here on the right side, and we were really worried that he had gone dark or something like that. Well, it turns out the 24th of April is a national holiday in Russia, so it's Parliament Day. So they took the week off and resumed a little bit later in the month. So, talk about the domain analysis here. So, cryptocurrency and XYZ TLD almost always other scammy things. The high entropy and the .net and .org, those would be the Sockfoolish. And here, right in the middle, is what we call the sweet spot. Cobalt Strike, most of the time. Those IP words, jQuery, Chrome, etc. And then the words like mashed up with expresswayprojects.com. They put 2 or 3 words together, and they always dump it in the .com TLD. So one of the things, this particular analysis took a long time to do. So one of the things I learned as a result of this investigation was how to use Synapse. And essentially, this saved me about 30 clicks every day that I was tracking this threat out. And basically, it would go in, look for our Gansbronze friend, it would look up the whois, we would grab the passive DNS, and if it was hosted or parked at regRU, we said we don't care. And so whenever they would move it to SelectTel or somewhere else, we would then start seeing use it in our client environments. So we did, start understanding a bit more about this particular Lockbit affiliate. To include their phone number. Yeah, we tracked this to a residential apartment complex in New Jersey, and this might have led to a few fun late night phone calls. This was not, an excuse to call them, but might have done that a couple times. One of the other things that this information, we took this information to visit with the FBI. And then just a few weeks later, we have one of our first, so this is an updated version of the posting. You can see the date there. So it's a little bit updated. So yeah, we went in and had some fun there. So let's talk about, everyone uses Cobalt Strike. What's different about how Lockbit does this? So some of the unique things that we found. One, as we all know, Cobalt Strike can inject into any Windows process using the sacrificial process. Well, Lockbit is the only threat actor we have found that uses Warefault to inject. So when you see an injection into Warefault, it was almost always Lockbit. One of the other things we did was we were able to get the Cobalt Strike watermark beacon, basically the license key for this, and was able to help send that to our good friends at.
So does that mean it was licensed or was it just cracked?
We think it was licensed. We think there was a shell company involved here, and then they bought it from Fortran. They ended up using the blister loader, which was a kind of a pain in the butt for us to be able to unwrap, but my team of reverse engineers were able to pull that out. And then they used masqueraded file names. What I mean by that is like winimage.exe, but it's in the root of program data versus where it lives on the Windows system. And then one of the other unique things we found was their use of a vulnerable Z CPU driver. So they would load this driver into RAM and exploit it to gain privileges to be able to disable antivirus, to be able to grab the LSAS keys without really trying there. So there were a couple of good offset fails. One, when they set up their new C2s, they used the default certificate twice and got caught up in public reporting. We'll show you that in a minute. The lack of who is privacy, we showed you that. And that same, the burner phone number that was used, I forgot to tell you this, was used by MediaLAN bulletproof hosting. So this is all tied together with them, NetWire rat, and it's all one thing together. So once we had all of the C2s, I decided to put them on a graph to see if there was anything interesting. And what I found is a couple things. So first, you can see those arrows there. Those are the times they screwed up and used the default cert, what we call the 6EC cert for Cobalt Strike, and they got caught in public reporting and took it down within a day. But what you can see here is that the pattern is every 5 to 6 months, they totally recycle their infrastructure, leaving one there so that they could migrate their victims from server to server very easily using the native features of Cobalt Strike. I love overlapping intrusion sets. It's just the greatest feeling to be able to do that. So, OPSEC wins. So they were able to use tooling to obscure their infrastructure. To my knowledge, very few people have this particular understanding of this particular affiliate. They were using some tools that kind of annoyed me. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to nmap them and grab the beacon config, which makes my life easier for doing reverse engineering and things like that. Well, they were using something, couldn't figure out what it was exactly, maybe something like C2 Concealer that prohibited all of my nmaps from all the places that I tried from doing that. Additionally, they were using packet filtering to stop me from hitting them from VPN providers and things like that. So they did a lot of things to do that. By the way, there's no Taylor Swift gift for this because these live wire pants don't deserve it. So we mapped all the C2s, and we use the Maltego there. We store all our data in a tip, and you can see over at the bottom left-hand side is the certificate that they use, and everything is kind of centered around that. I got to the point where I memorized some of the missed ID numbers, and so I was able to quickly say, oh, let's go to event 1256, and be able to move these things around. One fun thing when we share these things with the FBI, none of them are on Teams or anything kind of computer. They're all on the phone. There's some kind of bureau regulation where they're not getting on Teams to share this, so we have to tell them vocally and then share these things later with them, so we can't dazzle them with a PowerPoint. I can tell you this infrastructure will go down in flames. So back to our story. So in June of 22, we did a new decryptor, so we have Lockbit 3.0. And then one of my clients has the worst day ever. They got hit by Lockbit twice in the same day in 2 different parts of their company. Yeah, it was a really bad day for them. They're one of my favorite customers, and they love us now, but that was like their worst day. Oh, by the way, LB3 and 4 is the same company as LB2. So they got hit thrice in the course of a year. So they're better now. So we're going to talk a little bit about Lockbit Case 5, because this is the first time that we know enough about Lockbit to actually stop the encryption and stop the data exfiltration. However, our client declined to let us go to the FBI this time. Privacy reasons. It's embarrassing. It's all company culture there. So, yeah. But I was promised I will shake it off. So let's talk about this other event timeline. This is the time Lockbit 5. Our good friend Jimmy Garofalo there was the lure. And you can kind of see the standard Cobalt, SOC bullish to Cobalt Strike move there. I'm not going to drain this, but the threat actor was able to move laterally within 10 hours off the box, start looking at files, dump the DIT, dump LSAS, and then on the 31st, we have the client put in a block, and everything stopped. Everything stopped. Yeah, I was really happy that day. So one of the other things that we like to do to kind of understand the enormity of these cases is we make a link graph, and we basically show all the places where the threat actor has been, and we can kind of walk this through so the visual representation so that our clients can understand, oh my gosh, he hit 427 different servers, or he dumped the LSAS here, and here's the end of the intrusion. So it's a good way to show them the timing of these kind of things. I told you I would shake it off. So the day after the FBI, the FBI, I went to go see Taylor Swift. It was amazing. Had a great time. So the next day, so because our client declined to let us go to the FBI back in March of that year, we needed to recreate the research based off of other facts and things like that. So fortunately, we get Lockbit case number 6. This is the last Lockbit case we ever did, where there was encryption. So fortunately, we were able to use that data. The client was more amenable, and towards the end of the month, we were able to stop our research on that. It was a lot of fun recreating that research. So one of the things we do is we track the number of victims of various threat actor groups, and Lockbit had kind of a good run there. And towards the end of May, we'll talk a little bit about what happened there. They started reposting victims in an attempt to regain notoriety and public view of them. But they had another problem. So back in March of 23, we go back to the FBI, and we have some good results there. We get the guy arrested and charged with those attacks. And then what's a little funny to me was a few months later, or actually 8 months later, or math's hard, 10 months. 10 months later, we see a new Cobalt Strike C2 with our same TLS cert after the guy got arrested. Someone has the kit out there, because we still see this pop up from time to time. Nowhere like it did before. Fortunately, we were able to work with our friends at, I won't name the place, to squash this one very quickly. So within a day or two of us contacting them, we saw all activity to that C2 stop. So we all know what happened on the 18th of, 18th of July this year. And we all know what happened on the 19th. But the 18th of July, those two guys pled guilty. And yeah. And by the way, the FBI was absolutely not bluffing. So, why am I telling you this story? It is a lot of fun to dunk on threat actors. However, one person and one team can really make a difference. You can too. It didn't take fancy tools or accesses. What I showed you was the public versions of those tools. So you don't need a lot of money. You don't need a lot of access to affect the change for these things. Information wants to be free. We do better when we share both our successes and failures as a community, and we have to do that. And then law enforcement is here to help. And as we saw, they don't often bluff. Questions?
So in your experience, is this mostly malicious ads, or is it
all yes,
phishing?
Malicious ads.
Malicious ads?
Yeah, most of these came from like the cockpit of Google. Basically someone said, Air Jordan CMFT 11s, and they click the first link. Or Jimmy Garoppolo clicked the first link and do that. This is why blocking ads is so critical.
During your engagements, did you ever have a chance to directly communicate with the threat actor? Because I know in some of these IR engagements, and maybe that's more of the insurance side, they have to talk with the threat actor as part of that. So at any point during this, did you ever
No,
talk to your board?
yeah, well, by policy, I can't do that.
The image you had in the link intrusion analysis, so I know you mentioned like the full multi-go, right, for like being able to like try and map things out. What tools are you able to like disclose like what tools use this?
That's what I was imagining.
Yeah, this is Yed.
Okay.
From a company called YWorks, and essentially you can take an Excel spreadsheet and load it in, and basically it does this automatically for you. It's Yed, Y-E-D.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Yankee Echo Delta. Also, this one here, also made with Yed.
Okay, sick.
So yeah, it's very customizable, and it's free. So once again, up there.
Can you share what the scale is on some of these attacks? Like, are we talking 30, 300, 3,000? Because I imagine that kind of affects how long your investigation is going to go. Right?
Like Lockbit case 3 and 4, we were done in about 4 weeks. So, and that was kind of a large one, 2 entities. We actually had to split. Normally, we do the global team rotation. We actually had to split up to make sure that the team in Asia, had the right number of people. So we had to kind of split up on that one, which is odd for us.
Kind of follow up to that, like as the group come in, did you see them attacking larger and larger targets?
So,
or did it seem the opposite?
My viewpoint's a little bit skewed here. So as I mentioned, I do work for Accenture clients, which are normally large corporations, so I don't normally see smaller organizations. However, in tracking Lockbit for all of these years, we have noticed that after the big fall, that it's only smaller organizations getting hit.
I was going to ask, like going back to your link analysis, so many systems you pulled out and everything else. Are you guys using a special tool? Like I know right now Finalize is a big one to cover the network like that, or are you just using existing EDR?
We have our own bespoke tool that's very similar to ByAnalyze that we created and we've been maintaining over the last few years. Does the same kind of things, grabs data, brings it into some kind of presentation layer, and then puts the analyst in front of a web browser. So it makes it really easy.
Yeah.
So, and this may be a little bit outside of the scope of this topic. So, what makes Cobalt Strike such prolific C2 framework for a lot of threat actors as compared to using like Empire or Sliver? And why did Lockbit, or do you have any idea why Lockbit would choose Cobalt Strike as compared to some of these other ones? Because it seems to be so popular that it's very well fingerprinted, and I feel like it would be detrimental to use something that's very well known.
Well, so there's several schools of thought on that. One, if you've seen the Red Team blogs, everyone talks about how to do this with Cobalt Strike. So the barrier to entry is lower there. There's all kinds of documentation around that. It's also because of the ubiquity of Cobalt Strike. Sometimes it's hard to tell whether it's a red team or a bad guy, and so that's one of the other reasons they kind of blend in with noise there as well. So those are kind of the two reasons I think they use it. I mean, APT28 used that during the SolarWinds breach. It works. It's extensible. It's a great tool. Yeah.
Also, too, so you mentioned like using passive tools. Is that the risk IQ?
Yep.
Tool? Okay, cool.
Yep. But now it's called Defender for Threat Intelligence.
I want to revisit the redacted fluid record. That's usually always the start of the trail.
Say that again?
The redacted fluid record.
Yes.
How you guys were able to find that information. It's my bank, it's the bank my system.
Yes. I will say GDPR kind of killed who is hunting. I love who is privacy, but yeah. So essentially, what happens is the way that Passive Total is doing this, they're basically getting all the raw data from the source. But it's being filtered when you look at it with regular who is, virus total, other services other than Passive Total. Sir.
You mentioned that the company, I'm not asking which, of course, was victimized by the Lockbit. My mind immediately goes to, was that company using any kind of active EDR solution? And if not, why not?
Yeah, they were using an active EDR solution, but the threat actors disabled it.
Oh, wow.
So they used that ZCPU driver I talked about that disabled AD and EDR on the endpoint. So they were blind and unable to stop anything.
Are you at liberty to say which EDR solution they were using?
Between all 6 of those cases, you probably will see them all.
Sentinel-1?
I won't say the name.
Elastic?
I won't say the name.
So the ZCPU driver, that was, I guess, just like they brought their own vulnerable driver, dropped it on the system, and then
Yep. They were doing BYOVD before it was cool.
Yeah.
Yep. Any other questions?
CrowdStrike?
All of those companies are my partners, so I can't really speak to.
Did you get a review of this from Taylor Swift?
No, I have not, and I might need to say that I am not Swift on security. I've had to say that a few times. Cool. Any other questions? Any other questions about incident response or things like that?
I was gonna check Emily gave a good talk.
Yeah.
Right? It's a completely different type of talk, but still IR. When it comes to doing IR, yeah, there's the big technical part of it, but what do you think are some of the best resources for the soft skills you're talking about? The crisis management aspect of it, keeping the organizations you're working for, because you're coming in as a consultant, like, hey, we've done this before, you're going to be okay, but keeping their tempers.
So for me, what's been really helpful is be that calm voice in the room. No matter what happens, the client screams at me. This has happened more than once. The client is actually screaming at me. I say, okay, you're having a bad day. Let's step back from this and we'll figure out how to get you back to making widgets or whatever you need to do. So the other thing is organization is paramount here. Not just the IOCs and TTPs and what we see on the wire, but when do we start recovering? What backup do we start recovering from? And basically having that full end-to-end story of this, because guess what? The regulators are going to want to know, the CEO is going to want to know, and there's a lot of communications that's going to happen as a result of this. So there has to be a good communications plan that talks about just the facts, no suppositions, and wanting to make sure that we're telling the story actually, I'll use another Taylor reference, the story of us.
What is your communications cadence or frequency?
We defer to the client. However, we suggest twice a day, because any more than that,
DDoSing your investigation.
Yes.
Yeah.
I say I can either status you or I can lead the investigation. I can't do both at the same time. So, and it would be like twice a shift. So depending on the client, we'll do global operations and run around the clock.
So on your team, are there people who are designated as specifically documentation people?
No, documentation is everyone's responsibility. So, yeah. So now we do have people who do like quality assurance and engagement management who have more of those soft skills than our investigators. Because I like to say I like to keep my investigators home and in their sweatpants. That way, they can work at their own pace and have their life, basically be able to live their life in some form or fashion while still doing an active incident.
What kind of recommendations do you leave them with? Like, you could someone get multiple times.
Yep. So funny you should bring this up. So for cases 2 and the grouping there, we kept all the recommendations and we basically recycled the PowerPoint and said these were the ones from the last time, and it was really impactful for them to see. Okay, we sat on this for 6 months or 8 months, and we got hit again, and so there was a big culture change within that organization that started happening there. Funny thing is, several funny things happened here. First, on case number 2, the IR lead quit the day it happened. He says, I'm done. And the CISO quit the day it happened. So the deputy CISO and his team were leaning on us very heavily. So right now, the guy was promoted from deputy CISO to global CISO as a result of the culture changes that we helped his team make over that year. Yeah. Funny, also not funny. So much of what we do is kind of schadenfreude here. They were flat for the year, meaning they had no profit because of all these ransomware. Yes, and they still promoted the guy. Yes.
When you go back and just in general, when you do the autopsy on some of the more significant data breaches that have happened, you find that. Let me ask you, how do you protect your own team?
So I have another team that protects my team, and then basically, they watch our devices. They make sure that that we have all the patches. Make sure that we're not copying up to badguy.com and things like that. So in addition, so my team is just investigators. We have people who support us through recommendations, remediation, all of those things. Yeah, we're basically from point of impact until the investigation is done, and then we work to transition this to other teams and other groups.
So when you recycle those remediation recommendations and sent them back, so did you hit them with per my last email?
No. It goes back to kind of that tact and empathy to them. Yeah. I mean, we poke fun a little bit internally, but it's like, oh my God, company what again? Yeah.
So it sounds like you do a bunch. Oh, sorry. It sounds like you do a bunch of big companies, so you probably haven't had it in a while. But when's the last time you saw a case that's bad enough you told them, shut off your network?
Oh, last week.
Oh, okay. so how's your team responding remotely when the network's down? You just having them on-site teams?
Well, so we do a couple things. We have if they want us to go on site, we'll do that, although that can be expensive. But what we have done is basically give them a way to capture images or capture, triage data from the systems and then sneaker it to us. So we have our own little collection tool, fits on a USB drive, runs in a few minutes, and they can just basically take that, send us the encrypted files, and then we process it and go. You have a question?
Yeah. If you were to put your team like in a large organization and put them on roles, is it like a combination of forensic, threat hunting?
So yeah, great question. So my team is, let's say, about 150 people globally. About 40, 50% of that is actual investigators, etc. The remainder, we got managers. We have people we call engagement managers, basically think like a project manager, but so much more authority to take and make things right. And then we have people who build our tools and keep our tools sharp and shiny. So yeah. So basically, we have a full team, and then outside of my team, because I work at a large corporation, we have another group who does monitoring, and we have another group that does proactive readiness services, kind of that before the impact. So yeah, we cover all the things. But my team, we focus only on IR and threat hunts.
So, okay, I know you mentioned like engaging with the FBI. What do you have like key factors, like contributors, like one of our clients' business is completely shut down. Now we engage FBI. Do y'all have like like IRP for that? Like,
yeah, great question. So it's mostly based on two things. One is, can we provide actionable intelligence to the FBI to be able to say, it's this guy or that guy. The other kind is, when the client allows us, we'll basically give them all of our information that we have, and then they can use that in their investigations going forward. So, yeah, and it's really dependent on the client's appetite for. The FBI is not going to say who it was, but they want to be.
So, piggyback, are you just doing IC3, or do you pulling out a contact card and calling somebody?
I have a contact card.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my current boss is the former assistant deputy director.
Yeah. Once again,
but you can call IC3 and then you say, I want to speak to someone at the Newark office, or Newark office is handling a lot of cybercrime right now. So, worst thing you could do is call the Newark office.
I was wondering, for your clients, what's like your team's minimum level of access that you need? Are they sending you their threats and logs, or you guys have like key actors, suspended accounts, and things go wrong in the activation?
All of those and more. So, so sometimes the client will have break glass accounts for us, and then they'll activate them quickly so that you can log into their EDR or to their SIEM or do something like that. Some clients don't like that, and so what they'll do is they'll either run our tool or run a collection tool and then send us the data, and then we process it, and then we can go forward with that. It's been rare to go on site. Actually, before COVID, I was on site about 40% of my life. Since COVID, 5%, and we've only been going on site to do post-incident briefings and have dinner with our clients.
Most of the attacks that I've heard about have been kind of external. How often do you run into the inside threat?
So if I was to break down my cases over the last year, 80% ransomware, 5%, or actually maybe 10% business email compromise, 5% nation state, 5% insider threat. I will say insider threat cases are some of the more interesting ones, where you have to really deconflict normal activity from that. I think I have time for a quick story. So we had a case where a pharmaceutical sales rep had his phone taken through a domestic situation. So his partner took his phone, knew his password, and started checking out drug samples that weren't legit. So federal crime. This person sent really, really vulgar emails to the boss and some really weird pornography too. So what we had to do was deconflict the activity. So he was in this town on ISPX. She was in the same town on ISPX. how do we deconflict it? It's the same ASN. And so what we ended up doing was we mapped the entire ISP of that city and say, when you're coming off of this router leg, it's that person, and then our guy. And so we were able to do that to help deconflict that activity. So because it says it's our victim here, but it's not.
Have you seen a difference in the willingness of organizations to disclose either to law enforcement or other organizations after the SEC changed the APA filings where you have to report cybersecurity incidents?
So with very few exceptions, I haven't seen any public reporting on any, outside of SEC filings.
Like in your experience, because you're saying you're working with large organizations.
Yes, yeah.
I'm going to assume we're probably more likely to be publicly traded and therefore under the SEC's governance.
Yeah, we have seen an uptick in that. So the Air Jordans I'm wearing, they were basically my victory dance on the threat actors. And so every time since then, I've gone to either speak to national or international law enforcement, and I buy myself a new pair. So in the last 2 years, I bought 9 more pairs. So,
cool. If 80% of your cases that you're handling is ransomware, how many of those companies are willing to transact?
So by policy, I can't. I can talk about it, but my team, we can't even tell them that. We tell them to talk to the negotiator. We step out of that.
Sure.
So few and far between. Now, one of the things we do once we do that is we get the encryption key and we make sure it's not going to do anything worse and make sure it's going to be effective for them. I think I've only dealt with the key like 5 or 6 times, and I've done 170 of these in the last 8 years.
I was gonna say, would you agree that all the effort that goes into performing ransomware and all the stuff that it takes, that when you get the decryptor, they're the biggest pieces of trash
that
have ever been developed? Like, if they would put half as much effort into their decryptors as they do everything that goes into getting this, it'd be great. But
no, we tried to reverse the encryptors and get the key out, but they're not. Yeah, it's not meant for speed or recovery. It's
so slow, so horrible.
All right, I've got one announcement for you all, but first let's put our hands together for Jeff Belay. That was an awesome session, awesome discussion, thank you. The announcement, so now it's lunchtime, up until 13:30, 1:30, that's when the next talks and workshops begin. There is a university cafeteria. If you go on Google Maps and you're walking to the university cafeteria, they're going to get confused because orientation is going on right now, and all the orientation students, they have like a free meal ticket. So they're going to ask you for your ticket. You don't have a ticket, so if you go get over there, just tell them you're paying cash, tell them you're not part of orientation. There's a ton of other restaurants nearby.